Hello and welcome to I Know That Voice, the podcast about voice actors and voice acting. I'm Keith Wickham, I'm a voice actor, have been for 30 years. You'll know me best probably as Sir Topham Hatt from Thomas and Friends, as well as Gordon, Henry, Edward and various other engines in the show.
Can you get on with it, Keith?
I'm also Professor Inkling and Shellington in the Octonauts, and I was a koala brother, I was Cornel and Watch My Chops, I was in 64 Zoo Lane. I was also Change Daily in The Secret Show.
Show isn't about you.
I thought it'd be nice to talk to my fellow voice artists about their profession. These are people whose voices you will know, but who could still go to the supermarket without being mobbed. Today's guest is the multi-talented writer, composer, performer, voice artist extraordinaire Emma Clarke. She's the voice of a lot of the trains on the London Underground and other transport systems around the world as well as in Britain. And she's the presenter of the breakfast show on Saturday mornings on BBC Radio 3.
I think we've got enough there.
OK. Well, I'm talking to Emma Clarke, voiceover, musician, composer, writer, you name it, she does it. Hello, Emma.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And, I just basically how you got into the voice work in the first place. Did you see yourself as a voice artist from the beginning?
No.
Or was it something that you, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I mean, I didn't really know that a voice artist was a thing.
Okay.
I didn't even realise it was a career. I mean, I still don't, to be fair. But, it all began, really, when my mother won a cassette recorder. It was like a raffle or a tombola at school. And I was a very, very small child. I was like 3 years old, 3 years old. And I started playing with this amazing machine, which I thought was like a time machine. I could go backwards in time and it could record me. It was amazing. And I was absolutely fascinated with audio. And that was really the beginning. And then I was always interested in voicing, voice work, doing silly voices, impressions, accents. I was just fascinated with audio, really. And this kind of went on as a kid until I was about 16. And I wrote to the BBC. Actually, I think I was younger. I think I was 15.
We all did. We all did that,
totally.
didn't we?
Totally that. But I wrote to the BBC and said, I really am fascinated with voice and audio and I would love to meet you. Could I come along and meet some of your producers? And amazingly, they said yes. Amazing.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I'm so grateful to them. So I rocked up to New Broadcasting House in Manchester with 6 very different pieces to read to these producers, and there was a whole range of people there. There was Alfred Bradley was there was an absolutely legendary radio producer, Michael Fox, Paul Z. Jackson. There were loads and loads of people there. But I didn't know at this point. I was in the huge radio recording studio, the radio drama room, on my own, this little kid with these 6 pieces of paper, reading these pieces. And I finished. And then a door in the corner of the studio opened and all these guys came out. And oh, my God, there were that many of them. I had no idea. So they came out and met me. And then I started getting work from the BBC pretty much straight after.
Wow.
I worked a lot with Alfred Bradley on shows for Radio 4, quite highbrow poetry and prose reading stuff. And then I also started to do lots of comedy for Radio 4 quite early on. And then my dad said, why don't you think about doing commercials? So I said, do people do that? He said, yeah, there's a studio in Sale. And he'd actually looked it up for me, and there was a little studio called Alpha Sound that was less than a mile from where I lived. And that was one of the UK's commercial production hubs for radio stations across the country. I had no idea. So I go along to do this voice test. Bear in mind that I was quite a classically trained actor, and I'd done all this Radio 4 stuff. So I went along to this audition to record something for, I don't know, Larry's Laminate Land or something. And I was reading it, I was orating, I was, emoting like an actor. And the guy, Steve England, said, no, that's not very good at all. So he said, you really need to learn how to do this. It's a totally different technique.
Yes.
So he said, go away and practice. So I did. For 2 years, I recorded the radio and transcribed the commercial. This is really sad, Keith, actually. I feel a bit self-conscious telling you this. People will think I'm more than usual, a sado loony.
Isn't this just what we all... I did this.
Did
we all
you?
did it, surely. Because otherwise, how
would you do it?
How do you do it?
Yeah, totally. So I transcribed all these commercials and typed them out on my little typewriter, and then I read them and recorded them in this little original recording device that my mother had won, this cassette recorder in the raffle all those years ago. And then I went back to Alpha Sound when I felt confident that I wasn't going to make a total knob of myself, and I did another voice test, and they started giving me work, and then it just snowballed from there. And that's how I started. But it was all kind of happenstance. I mean, I did put in a lot of work, I have to say, because it's not an easy thing to learn how to do.
Well, it's a classic story. We'd all have these stories, I think.
Yeah.
It's luck and work.
Yeah.
You have to do both. Luck, to be honest, whenever people talk to me about this, I always say it's luck, because it is luck. It's luck you've got talent, luck that you've got the equipment, luck that you've got
totally.
a studio, luck that something's being made. The work is simply you trying to improve your technique.
Yes.
And make it happen.
Yes.
But it's right place, right time.
Totally is.
Isn't it?
Totally is.
So you were classically trained?
Well, I took lots of exams with the, LAMDA, Guildhall, London College of Music, Speech and Drama, and I was the youngest person to become a licentiate teacher with the London College of Music, Speech and Drama. I taught lots of different people. I had private pupils, and then I taught. Actually, it was weird because it wouldn't happen now. Never happened in a million years now. No. But I taught at the college where I was an A-level student, and they asked me to teach the GCSE kids who were coming in on a kind of day release into our college. Taught them. I taught creative play to nursery nurses. Taught special needs students, taught BTEC. Yeah, so I did.
How old were you at that point?
I was 18, which is mental.
That's responsibility, isn't
mental, yeah. I mean, I took it very seriously, and I did all my lesson plans, and I sent them to my supervisor and said, "This is what I'm going to do, and come and observe, and blah blah blah." And I really loved it. I really loved the teaching. That was good fun. And for years, for about 3-4 years, maybe, I along with a guy that I ran a theatre company with. At the time, we used to run the children's theatre workshop at Theatre Clwyd as well.
And presumably the work, did it carry on the whole time? Have you had a dip? Have you ever had time off, from this, not working at all, or is it just a constant?
I mean, you know what it's like when you're self-employed. You don't get paid if you don't work.
Yeah.
So when I had my children, I did take a little bit of time off. But I had my own studio, so I could be a couple of steps away from my kids when they were very small. It's really hard when you've got small children and you still have to work.
When would this be? How long ago would this be?
Well, my eldest is nearly 24 and my son is almost 20.
So the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Basically. So you were ahead of the curve on the home studio thing, because there weren't many people with that.
No.
Really?
No,
back
exactly.
then.
Exactly. Well, broadband changed everything.
Yes, that made a huge difference.
It did, because I remember the days when I'd record stuff on a DAT tape and send it through the post.
Yeah, yes.
To a client. And then I remember the very early days of sending MP3s over the internet.
Yep.
And it would take... God, it would take hours.
Ages. Were you on a 56k modem? One of those. Yes. One of the. And there was that, and also ISDN. I suppose that was the other one.
When ISDN came in, that was phenomenal. Big change, because what that did for me was that I was spending at least 6 hours a day in my car. Driving from radio station to radio station to studio to studio. So I'd start my day, I could even, I could begin in Liverpool at Radio City, and then I might get a call and go to Hallam in Sheffield, and then I might have to go to Viking in Hull, and then come back via Signal in Stoke. In one day. It was ridiculous.
It's like being a stand-up comic, isn't it? It's like going from gig. Yes.
It was ridiculous. So when ISDN came in, it was just a godsend, because I could just be in one location and work more without having to be in my car the whole time. And the way that we market ourselves, using our websites and using, apps like SoundCloud and, all sorts of different things to facilitate our audio. The internet and broadband has changed everything. And of course it meant that we could work overseas as well really easily.
This is true.
And develop international clients and not be just limited to one territory. So, yeah, it changed everything, really.
And your work, presumably you've always been based up north.
Well,
you never really worked in London. Have you
I
worked
did.
much
Yeah,
down?
I did. I did a lot of work in London for the BBC mostly.
Right.
I was the first girl voice on the Now Show, and I did that until I had my daughter, and then I had to stop because I was also writing for the show, and it meant being in London for half the week, and I just couldn't. I couldn't split my life like that with a small child.
Because because I was going to ask about that. You were writing as well.
Yes.
For all this time.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
So there was a comedy and drama and
the voicing was kind of the thing, really.
Okay.
So yeah,
you're a restaurateur as well, and a car mechanic. And
I was actually a brain surgeon part-time.
A brain surgeon and a
actually,
librarian. Yes, you yeah.
But I did live in London. I had a really nice flat in Highgate, and the plan ultimately was for me to move down to London full time.
Yes.
But my father was very ill, and my mother had died 6 years before.
Right.
And I was kind of splitting my week between... It was really bizarre. It's this weird kind of split Jekyll and Hyde life where I'd be doing stuff in the radio theatre, this crazy comedy stuff, and then I'd be back up to Manchester to deal with Christie Hospital and oncologists and my dad. And then my dad died, and I just thought, I just need to be in one place, and I need to be near my mates, because I had lots of colleagues in London, and I had one very good friend, and then she became very, very famous.
Okay.
But I needed to be back with my mates at home, so I moved back to Manchester full time after that.
Okay.
But I was briefly in London.
And now the overlap, I suppose, if there's an overlap, is you are also, people aren't going to believe this, a composer and a musician.
Yes.
Which you've been doing since you were a kid.
Well, I was playing the guitar since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I started composing properly during lockdown.
Right.
I'd written a couple of little pieces for guitar, but nothing major. And then we'd moved to Stockport just before the pandemic, and I'd started having guitar lessons again. And my guitar teacher, Rick Roberts, was just really encouraging. And, I've broken various fingers, Keith, over the years, doing various sporting endeavours. I can't play the guitar terribly well, but I was very keen. And I said to him, I can hear loads of music in my head. Which app would you recommend for me to write it down? He said, well, start with MuseScore. Just do it. Just try it. So I started writing with MuseScore, and then very quickly I moved over to Sibelius, which is this amazing programme. Really, really good. It has its limitations, but it's loads better than MuseScore for me. And I wrote to the Royal Northern College of Music, to the then head of composition, Adam Gorb, and said, I really love writing music, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Can you recommend a teacher? And so he recommended Tom Harold, who is this incredible teacher, incredible composer. And we had lessons online every week during lockdown. And I started orchestrating. So I started in September 2020 with Tom. And then by the Christmas, I was writing for full orchestras. He was a brilliant teacher. He was a phenomenal teacher. And then he said, would you consider doing a master's degree? And I said, no, well, they wouldn't have me because I haven't even got an undergrad degree. They wouldn't entertain me because I set up my business. I was voicing from, 16 really. I didn't go to uni. I was working the whole time. So I said, no, apply. So I applied to Leeds Conservatoire, and amazingly they said yes. And I did my master's, and then they said, would you consider doing a PhD? So I said, I'd love to, because I don't want this to stop. And so I applied, I put together a research proposal, and I applied to the Royal Northern College of Music. And again, amazingly, they said yes. And Adam Gorb was my primary supervisor. Really? So it's really strange how it all kind of comes together. So now I'm halfway through my part-time PhD, and I still don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, I still don't know what I'm doing. Because when you're a composer, you have to know how all the instruments work.
Sure.
What their range is, what's possible on an instrument. Because one thing that these amazing composition tools give you, they give you like a rendering of what you're scoring into the app, but it might not be actually physically possible. So when you're actually working with musicians and singers, it's a whole different ballgame, really.
Did this lead directly to your job on Radio 3, or was that another?
Yes, it did, because I think we all reevaluated our lives, didn't we, during lockdown? And I thought, OK, what do I want to do? And I wanted to do more broadcasting. So I thought, what's the best way for me to do this? So I thought, I'll do a podcast. So I made a podcast about music called Before the Bar Opens. And it was me interviewing people who make, use and love music. And the purpose of me doing that was to show that I could interview people, I could talk. And then I just put it on LinkedIn, just crossed my fingers. And then I got a message from Sam Jackson, who's the controller of Radio 3, saying, we've heard your podcast and would you come in and have a chat?
Lord. You've got a lot of good breaks, haven't you?
Just been... I have, massively. And the thing, do you know, that the thing about Sam is that years and years and years ago, I used to be the station voice for Classic FM. And I'd record all the imaging liners, and in the back of the studio, behind the producer that I was working with, this is all on ISDN, so I didn't know who was actually in the studio at any given time because I couldn't see them. I wasn't there physically. This guy would be in the back of the studio, and initially he was an intern, and then he was taken on as a junior producer. And sometimes he'd be there, sometimes he wasn't. And then when I met Sam, he said, I was in the back of the studio. It was me. And I was listening to all your imaging stuff. And there was one particular session where we were kind of showcasing different areas of the orchestra. So I had to announce, like, brass, strings. And I couldn't say wind for laughing because it was just ridiculous. And Sam always remembered that.
So the other thing, I don't know what you want me to say is your main thing, but because the whole point of this is that people will know you but not know you.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So the London Underground stuff. So you're the voice of.
Well, last time I was in London, I heard myself on the Central Line.
Okay.
And that was the only tube I rode that day. But I've done safety announcements quite recently for Transport for London as well.
So you did all the station announcements?
Not all of them. When I started doing it in 1999, there were 3 different organisations that made up London Underground. I was kind of part of the Underground, and I wasn't by no means the only tube voice. There are others.
Yes, so you did all of those, Mind the Gaps and all that stuff?
Yes, and my voice is inside the trains, so you'll hear me saying, the next station is Piccadilly Circus.
Presumably you hear yourself.
Oh, hate it.
Yeah?
Hate it. Hate it. Makes me feel physically queasy when I hear my own voice. Yeah, I hate it. The worst was years ago when I used to have, a radio alarm clock when it would kind of wake me up with the radio station, and it would be me selling me, I don't know, a funeral plan or something. It would just be awful experience. Very unsettling.
Which is odd for a voice artist. I would... Because I get so used to the sound of your voice as a voice artist.
I just hate listening to it because I know what I've done with my mouth. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I can hear the technique. I can hear my brain. I can hear the cogs. I hate it.
Well, as long as no one else can.
This is it.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. There's something quite interesting about the disembodied voice. When you hear your own voice not coming out of your body live, it's disembodied. It's something uncanny.
It's not you anymore.
It's not you anymore. It's you in the past. There's something quite ontologically fascinating about the relationship we have with machines as humans who record our voices. And there's a really interesting disconnect about where our identity is, because that voice, the recorded voice, is not me. It is not me. What is it?
I got very good, and presumably you are, at separating yourself from what you've recorded. Oh,
God, yeah, totally.
So if I'm an animation session and I've done a scene, I can listen to it outside as if it's not me.
Yes.
Entirely, and then I can analyse it and say, well, that needs to be faster, that needs to be this, that needs to be that.
Totally.
You don't think of it anymore.
Yes.
It's a thing. You're delivering a service.
Totally. You don't take ownership as it being part of your core identity anymore. You have to let it go and listen with the ears of a producer, really, to critique it. and let it go. You have to detach your ego from the recorded voice to be an effective voice actor, I think. It's like when you're driving and you think, hang on, I'm in Manchester city centre. How did I get here?
How did I get
Where
here?
was Levenshulme? That's a T-shirt slogan, isn't it?
Yes, which
Right
entirely sums up your career. One of the things I want to talk about on this podcast is technology, because it's changed so radically and completely from the old analog tapes. But now we've got AI, and I don't know how you're finding it, or how your attitude to it. Is it? So, are you seeing it as a threat, as a thing that you can use, or is it what is your take on it?
I have strong views on AI. I feel quite conflicted about it because it is here. We can't stop it. We can't get rid of it. It is here. You know, it's like herpes, isn't it? You never quite get rid of it. It's there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think we've got to find a way of living with it.
Right.
That said, it scares the bejesus out of me for all sorts of reasons. Yes, it's claiming a lot of jobs in the creative sector. I mean, you know, God, a friend of mine is a very, very gifted data analyst, and he's lost his job to AI. You know, it's affecting so many different people.
Yeah.
The ethical part of AI really scares me. So from a voiceover's perspective, I will never and have never licensed my voice to be cloned by AI. I will never do it because it is my core identity when the voice is still in my body. You know what I mean? It is mine. It's a big part of me. I will never give anybody the power to use my voice in whatever way they see fit, for whatever purpose, in whatever setting, without my knowledge or approval. I just cannot let that happen.
Payment.
Exactly that. Now, years ago, I got a phone call from my agent, our agent actually, to say, a bit of a strange one this client wants you to audition for an on-hold job. So nobody ever auditions for on-hold jobs when you're a voice actor. They listen to your show reel, you just give them the job and you voice it, that's it. You never audition, so it's a bit weird. But they were paying me, which was even weirder. So I said, okay, just clarify with them that this is purely for an audition and they cannot use it for any purpose whatsoever unless they tell us. And she said, yeah, fine. Then they came back and said, you've got the job. We want you to record about 6 hours worth of sentences that didn't make sense, like the toothpaste oozed out of the tube, right? And the really sinister ones, the blood was everywhere, really quite dark. And I said to Jane, this is text-to-speech. They're harvesting phonemes of my voice to replicate it. And it was years and years and years ago. But I knew what they were up to because text-to-speech was just beginning. And I said, I'm not going to do this until they come clean and tell us what it's actually for and who they are. Because the other part of this was that they were really shady. They were apparently a holding company based in Switzerland. So I said, I'm not doing it without knowing the full scope of this because I just got an icky feeling about it. Anyway, Jane went back to them and got it out of them that, yes, it was text-to-speech. And when she said, well, who are you actually? It was one of the biggest companies in the world. And they were calling themselves something else. And so I said, well, I'm not going to do it. But out of interest, I'd love to see their licensing agreement. And it was one of the most bizarre documents I had ever read in my life. I sent it to my lawyer, actually, because, you know, as you know, in this job, we have to do quite a lot of licensing deals and intellectual property work. And so, I mean, you know, I talked to my lawyer quite a lot. Look at this, what do you think? And he phoned me straight away and he said, I've never seen anything like this before.
Oh, Lord. This is like a Nordic noir thriller.
Honestly, it was just bizarre. What they said in this license was that they wanted to buy the voice and use it and have their software learn how to replicate this voice for any purpose on any platform, invented or not invented. Games, toys, apps, healthcare, government, education, you name it, everything. List, long list. Throughout the world and the solar system, because they wanted it on the space station. And the killer line, Keith, was that they wanted it to be licensed until the sun dies. Honest to God. Honest to God. And can you guess the fee that they were offering for all this usage? They were basically...
I'm going to have a go at £1,000.
Well, bang on. It was $1,000. And so I said, no chance am I doing this. I just couldn't do it because I said to them, I do not want to unwittingly become the voice of waterboarding. I don't want my voice to be used in scams, in torture, in propaganda. I do not want my voice to be used for those purposes, so no. So I had this big call. It was really bizarre. At the time, I was living in Altrincham in South Manchester, and my studio at home was a converted toilet. The toilet had gone, Keith, I have to say.
Well, good.
Just to comfort you. And I had this call with this company's legal team, and they were in California.
Yeah.
And they just said, we don't understand why you're not really excited by this project. And I said, well, even if I wanted to do this, it'd take a lot more than $1,000 to excite me, love, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, as part of my PhD research, I'm looking into how the voice is used and how the voice functions in different settings. I've done a lot of research on war bots, for instance, the use of robots in war and how they're gendered and how they use the voice and all the rest of it. Just imagine if my voice was in one of those things, corralling people.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about. So,
I mean, I'm assuming they did find somebody and they would have paid somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And that somebody will have had their voice used in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also people have been used without their permission, which
I know.
has happened a few times.
Well,
I'm dreading finding out I have been, and there's tons of me out there.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
This is
which
the thing.
They could get.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, isn't it? When we put our voices out there on our show reels, then, software can easily learn our voices. But I think for me, I do not grant permission. To answer very briefly, AI is here. We ain't going to stop it. It's claiming a load of jobs, and it's pretty grim.
And do you use it for anything else? Because other people use it for writing and stuff. And are you using it in your music?
No.
Or no?
No. Actually, I used it as for one thing. To make the point really about how crap AI was. I typed in a music brief into a text to music app. And it didn't understand what I was asking it to do. It just didn't. He didn't get it because what I was kind of looking at was to what degree does AI understand nuance in sound? How can it replicate nuance in sonic meaning? And it can't or couldn't when I last did it. I mean, the problem is, though, these tools are getting better and better and better.
Yes, as someone else said to me, they're not going to get worse.
No, they're not, are they? But I really hope that there's going to be a bit of an analogue kickback and that people, will prefer human-made things.
I think in the long run they may well do.
It's the money, though, isn't it? This is the
it's
thing.
Money, and it's the producers have always found actors a bit of a nuisance.
Yeah.
And they've always wanted to eliminate us from the equation if they could.
Yes.
Because we cost money. Somebody said we are expensive talking props.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've said this, unless you're a star and you're bringing the money in, you are a drain rather than a gain.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So I'm kind of ambivalent at the moment because I don't want to panic myself into a hole. But on the other hand, it's difficult to be that positive about it in our respect. There are it does brilliant things, medical diagnosis, and there are brilliant things it can do. But they all tend to be more technical. They all tend to be the stuff that we are not very good at.
Yes.
Humans are not very good at massive computations and memorising things. working stuff out on a huge scale and very fast. But as you say, nuance, creativity, depth and breadth of experience,
empathy.
At the moment, it can't replicate that.
No. Exactly. And comic timing as well is very difficult for AI to learn, I think.
It doesn't have a sense of humour.
No.
Computers do not have a sense of humour.
No. I think it's a pretty grim landscape, but I am a natural optimist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not deluded.
Yeah.
So I'm a pragmatic realist, I suppose, and I think huge swathes of the voiceover industry is going to be swallowed up by AI, e-learning, on-hold stuff, straight narration, maybe corporate presentations. But I think the more nuanced stuff still needs a person, still needs a human being.
Audible have released books on AI.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot. They're doing that now. There's 100 titles or something.
Yeah.
And there's already been a kickback on that.
Exactly.
I think listeners of audiobooks won't like it.
No.
I don't
No,
think.
because I think if people know that they're spending their leisure time just with machines, there's something quite chilling about that. I mean, I saw an interview with Mark Zuckerberg. He was talking about how many friends people have and that they would benefit hugely from AI friends. And I thought,
I heard that.
Seriously, have a word with yourself.
Yeah, I know.
What?
I said to somebody that creates another bubble because if you have AI friends, unless you build in an algorithm that disagrees with you every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. You're in an echo chamber.
You are in your own echo chamber without anyone else in the echo chamber because it's a machine. Yes.
Awful. Because in the interview he said something like we only have, as adults, we only have space in our lives for probably no more than 5 friends. And do those friends really meet our emotional needs? Mate, really? Get pretend ones that don't exist. What?
And humankind has existed without this stuff. That terrifies me, that kind of stuff.
Me too. I find it very dark. It's an episode of Black Mirror waiting to happen. What I think is going to happen, in my dark, twisted imagination, I can imagine that AI is being trained on so many people who use it. How long is it before AI starts pairing people up, either for professional networking or as a dating thing? I mean, ChatGPT itself and similar, actually locating these people with these personality traits to do specific jobs and to be with specific people. Because it knows the inner workings of your personality. And I think it will just become this curated society. It's really quite chilling.
Because I'm interviewing people, I hesitate to editorialise. I don't want to say much. Yeah. I'm trying to keep it neutral myself because otherwise you're skewing an interview.
I
am a bit concerned.
Me too. I think ethically there's huge questions about AI. Huge questions.
And there are other people who are very optimistic about the whole thing, and they think that we will be okay. But I just can't see it.
No.
Yeah.
I've got an icky feeling, Keith. I really have.
Yes. It doesn't feel good, does it?
No, it doesn't feel good.
I don't want to end on that note, by the way, because this is supposed to be a light-hearted chat generally, this podcast.
People often feel depressed after they've spent time with me, Keith. Don't worry. Make it end. Just tell her to go.
Where's Levenshulme? But your Radio 3 gig?
Yes.
You're presenting and interviewing on that one, are you? Or
Yeah, there's no interviews. I'm just presenting.
Okay. And is this music you choose, or is this...
It's a combination.
Right.
As you can imagine with Radio 3, there's a quite a detailed music policy. So we have to play a mix of music across different genres, across different periods, by different composers from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, female composers. There's a whole mix of remit that we need to honour each programme with to ensure that listeners are getting a really eclectic mix of music. And I'm able to choose 2 or 3 tracks a week, which is really good. I research the scripts, the music, and write the scripts, and then present on a Saturday morning. Really early morning, up at 3:30. I look terrible.
You actually do it live?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all live from Media City.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think they did that much anymore.
Yeah. There's all the breakfast shows come live from Media City. I mean, we don't have to hit the pips in the same way that Radio 4 does. So if we crash
Radio
the
3
news
is
a
a bit
bit,
more flexible, isn't it? Yes.
because of the nature of what we do,
Yeah.
the music, we can't fade the music out.
Yeah.
To hit the top of hour.
Yeah.
But it's just great fun. Really good fun.
Yeah, it sounds it.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Love it.
That's great.
Best part of my week.
Tell your husband. Have you got a lot less work now?
Voice
Have you
work,
found
yes.
Yes?
Yeah, definitely. As I say, a lot of the e-learning stuff, the corporate narration stuff, local radio, the whole landscape of local radio has changed, so there are fewer radio commercials to do. I hear that so many clients are using AI to write scripts.
Yeah.
And
That depresses me even more than the voice stuff.
I know.
Because if you can't get people who are creative enough to write the scripts, no one's ever going to learn either.
This is the thing. Institutional memory is just being eroded, isn't it? And it's all very well and good saying, well, if you want to do coding, just get AI to do it. Well, somebody needs to know exactly how to do the basis of it, surely.
Well, Bill Gates said the only jobs that are safe from AI are coders.
Yeah.
And people who run power stations.
Yeah.
Because we need electricity and it needs human oversight.
Exactly.
I was going to say hairdressers and nail bars.
Oh, can you imagine an AI hairdresser? You have a heart-shaped face. This cut will not suit you.
Are you going on holiday? Something for the weekend, sir.
That's very funny.
But the thing is that, like High Street, it's so symptomatic, is that the hairdressers and nail bars there are loads and loads of them.
Yeah.
All the other shops are disappearing.
Yeah.
But anything you actually physically have to go and do and you can't do online survives.
Yes.
Every time I think about this stuff,
I know.
I go a bit cold.
I feel a bit sick whenever I start to think about it, because then you kind of start thinking several moves ahead. Well, if that is going to be in place, then that means that, then that means that, then that means that. And you can kind of extrapolate the scenario.
Yeah.
And it looks incredibly bleak and dystopian. I think it's hard to come to any other conclusion, actually.
Yeah. Are you thinking of retiring, or are you going to adapt?
I've started writing a lot more. I've written a play. And I've written a book, children's book, which is out next month. And hopefully I'll do more presenting as well. And I've started mentoring students at the Royal Northern College of Music to basically teach them how to make a sustainable career in the arts and everything that you need to be aware of, and how you need to diversify and be aware of all the threats and issues that we have to deal with.
That's a good move.
Yeah, so I'm doing that. Yeah,
as well as your PhD.
Yes. And becoming a nail technician.
And even if you don't succeed, the fumes will keep you happy.
Yeah. Keep busy, diversify, think about what brings you joy. For me, I kind of think about my skills, well, not skills necessarily, but experience, knowledge and interests. And then look at the intersections of those three things to figure out what I need to do and how I need to adapt and pivot.
Thank you, Emma. It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching the end of the podcast, where this programme terminates. You have been listening to I Know That Voice. Today's guest has been one of the voices of the Tube, Emma Clarke. This podcast is produced and presented by Keith Wickham. Please take all your belongings with you. Remember, if you hear anything that doesn't sound right, please ignore it. Keith needs a cup of tea and a sit down. Thank you for listening.